If I hadn't taken him that day, would he still be locked inside that golden prison? Emily's voice cracked as she stared into the camera, eyes brimming with regret and something deeper, defiance. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of everything she'd carried since that day. She hadn't stolen a child. She had offered him a glimpse of freedom, but in a world that judged her for the holes in her sneakers and the rust on her bike, no one cared about her side of the story. She didn't want sympathy. She wanted people to understand why a girl with nothing risked everything for a boy who seemed to have it all. Because sometimes having it all means living in a cage no one can see. And what happened after the ambulance, the confrontation, the moment everything unraveled, was something no one could have predicted. Not even her. So if you think you know what really happened, stay with me. Because the truth, it's far more shocking than any lie they told. Richard Miller, one of the most powerful men in Los Angeles, stood frozen in the middle of the street, stunned by the sight in front of him. "Don't move. Stop right there." The man's voice sliced through the air like a knife. His eyes, usually cold and calculating, were now wide with something dangerously close to panic. A little girl, ragged, barefoot, covered in dust, was pedaling furiously down the sidewalk on a makeshift bicycle. But what turned his blood to ice wasn't the girl. It was the boy strapped in a crate-like wheelchair attachment she had welded to the back of that bike. His son, Daniel. What the hell was happening? Just minutes earlier, Emily Carter had been whispering to her grandpa Walter, helping him sip a cup of warm tea she'd brewed from dried herbs. Their small home in Eastwood District, a rundown neighborhood on the edges of LA, barely had electricity some nights. Still, Emily's hands were steady. She always made time to care for her grandpa, even when her mother Rachel left for work at dawn and didn't return until the city's lights came on. Rachel Carter worked 3 cleaning jobs across the city. Her body was tired, her eyes hollow. Rent was overdue. Food was never enough. And now winter was creeping in like a silent thief, and with it came sickness. Rachel's cough had started a week ago. Now she couldn't get out of bed. That morning, 10-year-old Emily had lit the stove, spoon-fed her grandfather, and checked her mother's forehead, still burning hot. Then she stood in the doorway with her sneakers too thin for December and made a silent vow. "I'll fix everything, no matter what." She reached beneath her bed, pulled out a rusted cookie tin, and counted the coins. Not even enough for cold medicine, let alone antibiotics. Desperation drove her to the wealthy streets of Beverly Hills, where the lawns were trimmed by gardeners and nannies waited with lattes outside private schools. Emily wasn't scared of rejection anymore. That emotion had been burned out of her by years of pretending not to hear what people muttered about her clothes, her smell, her life. Still, when an elegant woman dropped a few coins on the pavement and sneered, "Don't touch me," Emily felt a sharp stab of shame anyway. She picked up the coins from the ground one by one as people walked past, pretending she didn't exist. That night, her tears fell silently onto the tiled floor of Hank Thompson's bike shop. She'd started working there after school weeks ago, scrubbing wheels and sweeping sidewalks in exchange for a few dollars. Mr. Hank had offered her a small corner of the back room to tinker with junk parts. It became her haven, her secret world. "Rough day, kid?" Hank asked gently. Emily didn't answer. Instead, she pulled a chain out from beneath her sweater. A weathered locket swung from it. "It belonged to my grandma," she said. "She used to say, 'God only gives us what we can carry.' But I think he forgot how small I am." Hank knelt beside her. "Or maybe he gave you shoulders stronger than most." That night, Emily didn't go home to cry. She went home with a plan. For the next 2 weeks, she worked tirelessly. After caring for her mom and grandpa, she would sneak to Hank's shop to hammer weld and test. Her hands bled, her eyes burned. But when she was done, she had built something amazing, a bike with a hand-welded wheelchair carrier in the back, made of metal scraps, wood panels, and a prayer. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. And then she met Daniel. She had spotted him behind the gold gates of a massive estate on Sunset Boulevard. He was about her age, sitting alone in a high-tech wheelchair, watching the other kids play in the street beyond. Emily wasn't sure what made her stop. Maybe it was the sadness in his eyes. Maybe it was the way he didn't flinch when he saw her. "Hey," she'd said through the gate. "I'm Emily," he blinked. "I'm Daniel. You live here?" He nodded. "Why aren't you playing?" "My dad says it's too dangerous." "Since the accident, Since Mom left, Emily felt her heart clench. My dad left too. Took everything with him. My mom's sick now. It's just me and my grandpa. From that moment, something unspoken passed between them, an invisible thread made of pain, silence, and survival. They began talking every afternoon. Emily would stop by on her way to collect bottles for recycling. Daniel waited for her behind the gate, and one cold Saturday, she whispered, "Want to go for a ride?" Daniel hesitated. "My dad would never let me. Is he home?" "No, it's just the housekeeper. She's baking." Emily didn't wait. She found the side gate unlocked, wheeled him out, and gently strapped him into the rig. The smile Daniel gave her, it could have lit all of LA. As she pedaled, he closed his eyes and tilted his face to the wind. Emily narrated the world around them, the smell of the bakery, the mural with angel wings on 4th Street, the homeless man who always smiled at her. Neither of them noticed the black Mercedes pulling up behind them, until the screech. "Stop right now." Emily slammed the brakes. Daniel jerked forward. A man in a designer suit burst from the car. His face was pale, eyes wild. "What the hell do you think you're doing with my son?" Emily stepped off the bike and stood protectively in front of Daniel. Her hands were shaking, but her voice didn't crack. "Please, sir. It was my idea. Don't punish him. You can yell at me if you want. Hit me if you have to. Just don't hurt Daniel." Richard Miller froze. For a moment, all he could see was Grace, his daughter lost 5 years ago, standing there, defiant, fierce, protective. "Dad." "Please," Daniel whispered. "She just wanted me to feel alive." Richard didn't say a word. He lifted his son from the contraption and carried him to the car. Before climbing in, he turned and stared at Emily. He looked broken, confused, almost afraid. Emily didn't understand why, but she would, very soon. And what came next would shake the foundations of both their worlds. What would you have done if you were in Richard's place? Protect your child or try to understand the stranger who gave him joy? Let us know in the comments. And if this part touched your heart, please hit like so more people can follow this journey. That night, Emily didn't sleep. She kept seeing Daniel's face, his eyes brimming with joy as the wind rushed past them. And then just hours later, the sheer terror in them as his father stormed into the street. She kept hearing Richard Miller's voice, harsh and trembling, like he'd seen a ghost. Was she wrong for trying to give Daniel a glimpse of freedom? Was she reckless, but even worse? Would he ever be allowed to see her again? Across the city in a mansion carved out of silence and sorrow, Daniel lay wide awake too. His room was a pristine world of designer furniture, advanced tech, and artificial air fresheners. But it felt more like a cage now, especially since his father had ordered the staff to remove the wheelchair ramp from the back patio. No more unsupervised exits, Richard had declared. Daniel hadn't protested. He didn't have to. His silence spoke louder than any words. In the days that followed, Richard avoided his son, not out of anger but fear. Emily had shaken something loose inside him. She looked almost exactly like Grace had. The tilt of her chin, the way she stood between him and Daniel like a little soldier, his heart couldn't process it. Was it just coincidence? Or something more? He buried himself in meetings and distractions, anything to avoid the unanswered questions haunting him. Meanwhile, Emily's world began to crumble. Her mother, Rachel, found out everything. A neighbor had seen the incident unfold on social media. A passing pedestrian had recorded the confrontation and uploaded it with the caption, "Homeless girl kidnaps rich boy for joyride." The comments were vicious. The rumors spread fast. Rachel slammed the door that night so hard the hinges groaned. "You could have gotten arrested," she shouted, trembling. "I didn't kidnap him," Emily cried back. "He wanted to go. That's not the point. People don't care what really happened. They only see a poor girl touching what isn't hers. That boy is off limits. His world is not our world. And if you keep pushing like this, they'll crush you." Emily's eyes stung. "But I made him happy." "And what about me?" Rachel's voice cracked. "What about your grandpa? I'm dying here trying to keep us afloat, and you're out risking everything for someone who lives in a mansion? You think he'll save you, Emily?" "No," Emily whispered. "I think maybe I was saving him." The slap didn't come, but the silence after was worse. That night, Rachel packed a small bag. "If I can't protect you from them, maybe I have to protect you from yourself. Tomorrow I'm calling Aunt Lisa. You're going to stay with her for a while. Somewhere quiet, somewhere away from all this madness. Emily's heart shattered, but she didn't argue. She just waited until dawn, and then she ran, back to the one place she knew she belonged, Mr. Hank's shop. When Hank opened the back door and saw her sitting cross-legged on the concrete floor, her cheeks wet with tears, he didn't ask questions. He just poured 2 mugs of cocoa and sat down beside her. "I ruined everything," she murmured, "and I don't even regret it." He nodded. "Sometimes doing the right thing costs more than we can afford, but it's still the right thing." At that exact moment across the city, Daniel made a decision of his own. He unplugged the security tracker on his new wheelchair. He waited for the nanny to go into the kitchen, and then with trembling fingers, he wheeled himself through the front door across the lawn and out into the street. He didn't know exactly where she lived, but he remembered the route they'd taken together. The streets weren't smooth. His arms ached. Twice he tipped slightly sideways and had to stop to catch his breath, but he didn't stop. And when he reached Hank's shop, just as the sun was rising, and saw Emily sleeping inside on a pile of blankets, he smiled through the pain. He knocked on the glass. Emily bolted upright. Daniel, before she could say another word, he collapsed. A scream tore out of her throat. Hank came running. Within minutes, they had called an ambulance. Rachel was alerted, and so was Richard. Everyone converged on the ER like pieces in a storm. When Richard arrived, he saw Emily sitting in the waiting room, her hands still covered in grease from the bike shop, her face pale with worry. Rachel stood nearby, arms crossed, eyes cold. "You have a lot of nerve," she said. "So do you," Richard replied, barely glancing at her. "Your daughter saved my son. Again." Rachel bristled. "Your son nearly got himself killed chasing after a fantasy." "You think this is a fantasy?" Richard snapped. "Because from where I'm standing, your daughter is the only real thing in his life. And what you want to reward her, pluck her out of poverty and fix everything with money." "No," he said quietly. "I want to fix everything with honesty." The doors opened. A nurse called them in. Daniel was awake and waiting. Inside the sterile hospital room, the boy looked at both of them, his eyes not sick but blazing. "Enough," he said. "I'm tired of being treated like glass. I'm tired of being protected from life. Emily's my friend, and if any of you try to take that away, you'll lose me too." The room went silent. Even Rachel's voice failed her. And slowly, reluctantly, she looked at Richard. For the first time, not as a threat, but as someone who had just as much to lose. And maybe, just maybe, someone she had to learn to trust. What do you think? If you were Rachel, would you let your daughter stay friends with the son of a billionaire? Let us know in the comments. The room was still. Not the kind of silence that follows a scream, but the kind that settles when 2 people finally understand they've both been hurting for a very long time. Richard sat at the edge of Daniel's hospital bed, eyes lowered. Rachel stood by the window, arms wrapped tightly across her chest like she was holding something fragile inside herself. Emily stayed close to the door, uncertain whether she belonged here anymore. She felt like the bridge between 2 worlds she never asked to connect. And Daniel, he simply looked free, not in the physical sense. His legs were still weak, his body still healing, but there was something in his face that hadn't been there before. Peace. After a long beat, he said, "I want both of you to stop fighting. Please, this isn't about money, or rules, or whose fault anything is. I just want to live. Really live." His voice didn't tremble. It echoed through the walls. Rachel took a breath. "And what does really live look like for you, sweetheart?" Daniel looked at Emily, then back to his dad. "It looks like friendship. It looks like understanding. And it looks like us. Trying again." Richard's voice was rough when he finally answered. "I don't know how to try again. I lost your mother. I lost myself after that. And I've been trying to control everything since then because I didn't know what else to do." Rachel's posture softened slightly. "You're not the only one who's lost something. There was no magic fix, no movie-style handshake that solved years of pain. But that conversation, raw and real, opened a door neither Richard nor Rachel knew had been locked inside them. After Daniel was discharged, Richard requested something no one expected. "I want to come visit your neighborhood," he told Rachel one day. "I want to see where Emily grew up, where she learned to be so brave." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "You sure your shoes can handle cracked sidewalks and secondhand smoke?" He gave a small smile. "I think I'm overdue for some humility." And so a week later, Richard Miller, the man who once refused to let his son breathe outside sterile walls, walked through the streets of Eastwood with Daniel and Emily by his side. He shook hands with Mr. Hank at the bike shop. He sat on a plastic chair outside Emily's apartment while her grandpa told stories between fits of coughing. He watched Rachel stir soup in a chipped pot and saw her face light up when Emily made her laugh. And for the first time in years, he felt human again. Not rich, not powerful, just human. That night, he made a quiet offer. "I'm not trying to buy my way in, but I'd like to help on your terms. Maybe we can repair the heater or help with Grandpa's medication. I can send someone respectful." Rachel didn't answer right away. But later, when Emily kissed her forehead goodnight, Rachel whispered, "Maybe some bridges are worth crossing." Months passed. The gossip faded. The video disappeared into the sea of internet noise. And something surprising began to blossom between the two families. Not friendship, not yet, but respect. Daniel and Emily continued to meet sometimes at the park, sometimes at the hospital where Daniel did therapy. She'd wait while he worked through pain and progress, and he'd listen when she vented about homework and pressure and poverty she still didn't fully understand. On Daniel's birthday, she gave him something she'd worked on for weeks. A new version of the bike rig, painted in bright colors reinforced with real bolts. Safe. Strong. "Think of it like a metaphor," she said with a grin. "You've still got wheels and I've still got the drive." He laughed. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." "I know," she said, teasing. And just for a moment before Rachel called her back inside, Emily leaned in and gave him a quick hug. "You saved me too, Daniel. Not with money, not with medicine, but by seeing her when the whole world looked away." In spring, Richard invited Rachel, Emily, and Grandpa Walter to a small ceremony. It wasn't some grand gala or press event, just a quiet gathering at a new community center in Eastwood, built with local workers and designed with input from the neighborhood. A plaque was placed at the front. "For those who believe bridges are built by courage, not concrete." Richard asked Emily to unveil it, and she did with her head held high. As applause rang out, Rachel watched from the back with tears in her eyes. She squeezed her daughter's hand. "I was wrong," she said softly. "You didn't reach too high. You just reached far enough." Emily smiled. "Maybe now we both can." The sun dipped low behind the buildings. People laughed, music played. And for once it felt like both worlds, rich and poor, broken and healing, had found a place where they could breathe the same air. Not perfect, but possible. And sometimes that's where the best stories begin. Thank you so much for staying with us to the end of this emotional journey. Before you go, we'd love to hear your thoughts. If you were Emily, would you have forgiven Rachel so easily? Or would you have walked away? And if you were Richard, would you have had the courage to walk through that neighborhood and face your own past? What do you think of this story? If you enjoyed it, please comment. Number 3 down below, if you feel neutral, comment. Number 2, and if you feel it didn't quite connect, feel free to comment. Number 1, your honesty matters. Also, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. We'd love to know how far this story is reaching. And if it touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and spread the message. Someone out there might need this story more than you know.